Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the weekly EV podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome, everybody.
And we've got news for you today from Motor Trend magazine. This was an interesting headline, and I'm going to read you the first portion of this. It says, no matter how you slice it, present it, or asterisk the claim, Tesla and Elon Musk's big brag doesn't hold up. What they're talking about is the Cybertruck pull with the Porsche. They say there's no scenario where the Tesla Cybertruck beast pulls a fully functional Porsche 911 Carrera T across a quarter mile before the Porsche 911 Carrera T gets to the finish line.
That video was the most startling and absolutely the one that went on social media the most.
Yeah.
So now to hear it being debunked and disclaimed by an independent third party is that's going to be kind of newsworthy as well.
For me, being in the EV space, it was akin to the Apple ad during the Super Bowl when all of the people are sitting in the audience there. They look like robots. It was one of the most memorable marketing ads ever.
Yes.
But yeah, so they continue. They say even if Tesla had originally disclosed it only staged an 8th mile race. Remember, in the world of drag racing, you've got quarter mile, you got 8th mile.
Mm-hmm.
So something that has a lot more torque than another car would probably prevail in an 8th mile race until the other car spools up the RPMs and gets into the the higher horsepower ranges. But it said even if Tesla had originally disclosed it only staged an 8th mile race, the video seen by customers, fans, and curious observers is highly misleading. Like Tesla, we recorded runs with the Cybertruck ahead of the 911 at the 8th mile, but that's not enough for us to say that the Tesla 911 train is quicker than the Porsche. Based on the best performance of both vehicles, the 911 is a quicker car unless your race ends after 7 feet.
I watched that video that came out from Motor Trend, and it was close. Mm-hmm. But instead of the Cybertruck being pulled ahead by a half a car length or more, it was consistently, it seemed like the Porsche that was ahead by anywhere from a quarter car length to a full car length.
You know, what I kept looking for after that race or after that video was a rebuttal or response from Porsche. And it seems like there was nothing unless I missed it.
I didn't see anything either. And I was a little surprised because like you, Porsche is a very proud Italian car maker.
German.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, let's get that straight.
That's why. It's because they're German. Had it been a Lamborghini, had it been a Ferrari, they'd have been all over it before it was even published, probably.
With lawsuits included, right?
Yeah.
So if it's German, how do you say it? Is it Porsche?
Oh,
Porsche. How do you?
Porsche. Porsche, yeah.
Porsche.
And that's why most people here now, put that E at the end, Porsche, rather than just Porsche. We, in the U.S. or in English, we like to drop letters and consonants.
Yes.
They're silent ones. They are pronounced, the vowels are pronounced differently. In the German language, you have to pronounce every single vowel and consonant. That's why I keep telling you guys, when I first came here and they had spelling bees, I aced them all because in my mind, I was sounding out the entire word. Like knife wasn't knife, it was kniffe. So I knew exactly how to spell it,
Of course.
So yeah, no spelling bees in Germany, folks. But anyway, had this been an Italian car, the response from the other manufacturer might have been different.
Do you remember when Nikola put out its video for its electric semi?
I do indeed, yes.
They had these pictures of the semi coming over the rise and coming down the hill and going past the camera. And then we found out later that semi actually never was coming up over the rise. It was just rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
Because it had no motor in it. It wasn't functional. This to me it's not a good look on Tesla. It's the same type of deception.
Well, now let's put it in perspective though. This is Motor Trend's take, and maybe there will be some independent functions that are going to reassess this whole thing. But at least this is Motor Trend's take. And let's continue here. The race
Yes.
was a fantastic idea for a publicity stunt. And we're not just saying that because Motor Trend did the same thing 4 years ago using a Tesla Model X P90D and an Alfa Romeo 4C Spider. But it was reckless for a corporation worth billions of dollars to make an unsubstantiated claim to millions of people without ever running the actual quarter-mile race. You have to pick the right foil for the tow vehicle to win. In this case, the Porsche 911 Carrera is both too heavy and too quick for the Cybertruck to earn the victory.
I have to agree with you. They need to get even more than Motor Trend, somebody independent, talk about the process they go through, have the drivers swap. Maybe the driver's driving a Cybertruck one time and the Carrera the next time. A lot of things that they can do on that.
Do we know, is it a Cyber Beast?
It was a Cyber Beast.
It was a
yes.
Beast? Okay.
The other thing I find noteworthy is that, Elon is definitely very reactionary. The fact that there's silence after this Motor Trend article is also perhaps a clue, or maybe he hasn't seen it yet.
Maybe he hasn't seen it. Maybe they just don't want to talk a whole lot about it because they know that it's probably true. To me, it's always best to be truthful in business. The vibes around the Cybertruck are not the greatest right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a quality vehicle personally, but Motor Trend elsewhere in the article goes on to describe the Cybertruck's design like a doorstop.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Thought, oh my gosh. There's been some reported quality issues with the Cybertruck. There's been the little rust issue. Now they're having this. It's kind of a bad vibe that's going on with the Cybertruck. And frankly, I think it's actually a pretty good quality vehicle overall.
Yeah. The glitter is beginning to wear off, it seems. One of our master mechanics actually went up to Flagstaff this weekend for the Overland event, which I'd never heard of, but apparently it's where a bunch of four-wheelers and rock crawlers get together and, they have a community. Well, anyway, one of the vendors apparently brought up a Cybertruck. And it was on a trailer. They had display booths. They had, they were really promoting the whole concept. And what Mike was saying is, he said it was virtually vacant, absent. And he said the four-wheel guys have spoken. Apparently, they don't consider the Cybertruck as being one of theirs, kind of like a hipster wannabe pickup truck type thing. But the rock crawler four-wheel drive guys, at least here in Arizona, were not impressed and were not giving this any kind of love.
Very interesting. Interesting take there. We'll see how the Cybertruck continues. It may be that glitter is just turning into rust.
Yeah.
Does it feel like Motor Trend has it out for Tesla? I know in previous articles, like they've done like top, cars in 2024. They don't ever mention Tesla, or they exclude Tesla in certain rankings and stuff. Is there something that went on between Motor Trend and Elon or Tesla or something? Because it kind of feels like they have it out for them.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. If anybody in the audience has any information on that suspicion, we'd certainly like to hear from you. And it also needs to be said that the media and the periodicals, this is the kind of thing they thrive on, is controversial topics like this.
Oh, absolutely. And we've seen it ourselves. There are certain individuals within the magazine world and within these publishing empires or world that don't like particular automotive companies, or do like automotive companies in particular, and that little bit of a slant does come out in their writing. There's definitely a bias.
Yeah. All right, got another headline here. These are the world's fastest electric cars. And Jesse, if we can bring up a car named Aspark Owl. This is one I'd never heard of. But he's going to bring up the image here in a second. The article starts something like this. You might not have heard about the Aspark Owl, but it is one of the fastest electric cars in the world. Now, this is all electric cars. We're going to show you the next four. When it came out in 2020, the Japanese automaker claimed it was the fastest accelerating car in the world, and they provided it by breaking several Guinness Book World Records. Oh, they proved it. There we go. Only 2 cars have beaten the record, while one is a race car, a McCarthy Spearling, and the other requires some special tuning, the Dodge Challenger Demon 170. There you go.
Yeah,
a
wow.
U.S. American car. But these were not production cars, so at this point, it still remains the fastest car, according to Guinness Book of World Records. They say it is safe to say that the Aspark Owl is the fastest production car, reaching 0 to 60 speed in 1.72 seconds. And they say electric cars still have to catch up to the top speed of their petrol-powered counterparts, but the Aspark Owl still has an impressive top speed of 257 miles per hour. You know, that's almost tire shredding inertia and centrifugal forces. So,
that is so
pretty
fast.
impressive.
Yeah, like you, I haven't heard of the Aspark Owl before. Man, 1,985 horsepower. And it has a monocoque frame. And I know I'm mispronouncing it, but it's.
I can't help you there, but let's go with monocoque frame.
We'll go with monocoque. Yeah. It's the monocoque I know from bicycle technology because I like to ride bicycles. Monocoque makes basically it's a one-piece frame.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire frame of the car has been built as a single piece.
Interesting. Where'd you get the horsepower? I didn't get that in the article here.
I was able to look it up. I did some extra looking and found because I had not heard of the Owl before. I wanted to find out some more specs about it. Very fast car. Beautiful car.
Yeah. What was the horsepower? Because I think we're going into horsepower on the next
1,985 horses.
1985. Wow. Okay.
Four motors on that car.
Okay. The next one they list is the Rimac Navara. And we've got an image for that as well, Jesse. We can bring that up. They say that the Rimac Navara stands toe-to-toe with the Aspark Owl as the fastest electric car in the world. However, the electric supercar has a slightly higher top speed of 258 miles an hour. The Navara features 4 electric motors producing 1914 horsepower. You had 1985, right?
Right, 1985 in the Owl.
Which allows a 0 to 60 speed of 1.74 seconds versus the 1.72 for the Aspark Owl. They're right there neck and neck.
Oh, they are. I really wish. Remember we showed a couple months back the Rimac Navara going in reverse. It's the fastest car in the world in reverse. It goes 176 miles an hour in reverse. I wonder how fast the Owl can go in reverse. That
would be interesting, yeah. They talk about the Rimac also having an enormous 120 kWh battery and a range of 489 kilometers. Now, you're the math wizard. What is that in miles, roughly? 489?
489 is going to be probably roughly 300 miles.
300 miles.
Of range.
Not bad, okay.
It's pretty good. And the Owl only had a 62 kilowatt battery.
Okay.
So it was definitely a little bit smaller.
Now, stay with us because in the podcast later on, we're going to talk about an interesting thing about the Rimac Navara and some comments made by the CEO of the company.
Yes, looking forward to getting into that.
Yep. The next one they list. Oh, let's get some questions out of the way here.
On YouTube, ZDME about Motor Trend says, Motor Trend, do they have any advertising from Porsche?
Good question. Yeah.
Very good question. And then on TikTok, Matthew Rogalski. Gruber Modas.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yep, appreciate you guys. The third one they list is the Pininfarina Battista. Got a picture for that one as well. And the heading here says the Pininfarina Battista is a true electric hypercar reaching 0 to 60 in 1.79 seconds. Remember, we're at 1.72, 1.74. This one's at 1.79. So they're neck to neck here. But speed is not all that matters in a vehicle, as the Battista is a very stylish, modern supercar. Looking at the front of this, it kind of looks like the Lucid front light,
just a little bit, yeah. I mean, what makes it stylish versus the others?
Preference and opinion primarily.
I think so.
The Pininfarina, they say, has also teamed up with DC to make a Batman-inspired version of the Batista.
That'd be cool.
It would be, yeah. The first Batmobile was actually made by, help me here, audience. It's on the tip of my tongue. It was a fiberglass creation and not really roadworthy.
No.
One of my friends was with the successful bidder here about 15, 20 years ago at a Barrett-Jackson auction where the original Batmobile got sold for over $2 million. Now, granted, the funds went to charity on this one, but it was, he probably spent too much on it. It wasn't even roadworthy. The brakes weren't very good. And Barris, that's it. There was a designer in the 80s, I believe, that was responsible for some of these creations. So they talk about this Batista. The 4 permanent magnet synchronous motors belt out 1,900 horsepower with 218 mile per hour top speed. So we're still less than the other two guys.
Yep.
And then the final thing that they mention is the Tesla Roadster 2.0, which we're all still anxiously waiting for. The first Roadster was released in 2008, and we're all waiting to see when the next generation Tesla Roadster is going to be released. Is there anything that you guys have heard in the news as to any new predictions now, any new commitments from Tesla as to when that's on its way? Nothing?
No, I haven't heard any update. There's some rumors going around about a robo-taxi leak going on, but I haven't even heard confirmations on that.
Well, the story on the Tesla Roadster 2 is that they are planning to release the next version of this car, and its specs are simply jaw-dropping, and they don't give a date here. I think it was 2025, actually. It was the last I heard.
That's the last that I'd heard. It was sometime late 2025.
So the stock 2.0 Tesla Roadster can sprint to 0 to 60 in just 1.89 seconds. So it's slower than these other guys here because they were in a 1.7 somewhere. But there is a but, right?
Yes, yes.
As if that wasn't enough, they say Elon Musk has confirmed that it will come with a SpaceX option package that includes 10 rocket thrusters around the car. It will now allow the car to reach 0 to 60, forget about 1.7 something, right? Beating that slightly, in 1.1 seconds. So within a second, you're going to be doing 60 miles an hour on the freeway.
Oh, boy.
Can you imagine the other people on that freeway on-ramp watching you in 1 second suddenly merging with traffic, in the passing lane?
Oh, it's... What's the difference to us normal people? What's the difference between 1.72 and 1.89?
Yeah, I don't think you'd notice.
You won't notice the difference. Yeah. You're going to see a tunnel effect because you're going to be blacking out anyway. And it won't matter.
You'll be trying to catch your breath and breathe, right?
Yeah.
You'll be wondering why your stomach is up in your throat. It's a lot of fun, though. This whole electric vehicle, transition has just completely destroyed the performance of these, or the performance specs of cars. I mean, literally, when you went to a drag strip, a quarter-mile drag strip, you were lucky if you had a 13-second 0 to 60 run. I did it with my Roadrunner, actually, and that had a big block 383 in it, cammed and all of that. Sure. I pulled 13.4, something like that, in the quarter-mile run. Yeah. And if you got down to the 11-second range, or maybe it was even 12, come to think of it, they sent you back home and said, go get a roll cage or you can't come back.
Yeah, anything below 12, I think, is what it is.
Yeah. Now, a 4-door grocery getter, Tesla Model S, Plaid will pull down sub 10-second runs at the quarter-mile strip. And it's confusing the heck out of the people that have all of these cammed, performing cars with Mickey Thompson slicks and, gear drive and blown, engines. Oh, yeah. It's a slap in the face, basically. And they're just, I don't know whether they become apathetic and started to give up because there was a lot of pride at the drag strip. If you put a whole bunch of money in your car, you were going to get better performance. That's no longer the case. You have to buy an EV now, a four-door grocery getter EV, in order to impress anybody at the quarter-mile drag strip anymore.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Lucid Sapphire, 1.98 seconds. The Tesla Model S Plaid is up around that 1.9 to 2 second range as well. Even BYD has come out with their supercar that's a 1.94 or something like that. And these are like, they're not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
They're, $250,000 cars, but they're nothing like the 2 million plus for even these electric supercars. And they're faster and probably at or less than the tricked out ICE vehicles that are running 11 to 13 seconds on the drag strip.
Right. Just, we got a picture to bring up while we're on this topic. It's called 68 Dodge Charger. And I found this picture inspiring because it really does express the current situation with, performance cars. Here you have what looks like a Model Y. Is that a Y or a 3?
That's a 3. That's a 3.
That's a 3. Okay. They're sitting at a light. You know that one guy's going to be completely quiet. You know he's going to smoke that bright red 68 Dodge Charger that's got slicks in the back or wide tires. It's got traction bars. I can see it from here. It's got custom exhaust because you can see the 3-inch pipe kind of hanging down below it there. It's got, it's either blown or it's got a high-rise manifold, so it's probably cammed. And the difference between these two is one's going to lose, and it's the red car, but what gets it there is going to be so much more impressive. The noise, the vibration, the sound of the tires squealing, all of that. In the movie where they had the 69 Charger, Fast and Furious.
Okay.
There was one iconic scene where they're sitting at a light, and this was a black Charger. This is actually what inspired me to build my 68. I had a 68 like this in crystal pearl black with a 6-pack hood. But at one point, the light turns green, of course, and the front end of that 69 Charger just lifts up. And anyway, that was my inspiration to build a 68 Dodge Charger many years ago.
But you're right. That thing is it's gonna squeal, and it's gonna smoke, and it's gonna be loud, and it's gonna be behind the white grocery getter.
But so much more impressive. And, when you go to a gas station, of course, the white car is never going to go to a gas station. It's going to go to a supercharger. You're probably not going to get a lot of conversation. People walking up and saying, how long have you had your Model 3? Do you like it? What is it? How does it perform? But you take a 68 Dodge Charger to a gas station, especially one that looks like this.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not going to get out of there without conversation.
Oh, yeah.
All right, got some people here. YouTube, ZDME says Porsche advertising wins. That's quite possible.
Very possible. And then Obertowski again says on YouTube, hello, Mr. Gruber.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. So we've got another image here, and this one is ICE bans. And the headline here was, between 2025 and 2030, all petrol or gasoline-powered and diesel cars will be banned in most of the countries, and electric cars will take over and dominate the entire automobile industry. Now, it is true that some countries now have scaled back on that requirement.
Yes.
In fact, Jesse, you were saying something about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's several countries that I think have adjusted their timelines, added another 5 years or more, and then there's a number of companies that have also walked back when they're going to end their ICE production. I don't want to say names because I don't want to misspeak, but I want to say some of the Japanese automakers are on there, as well as I think Ford has slowed down, but I can look more into that.
I can tell you Ford, Chevy, and Dodge have all slowed down. The Ram Revolution was due to be out by the end of this year. It's not now. Ford has scaled back production of its Ford Lightning pickup truck. Chevrolet, the Chevrolet Silverado pickup, electric pickup, they are put that off by a year. Those are just a few. As much as the EV enthusiasts would love to think that this is going to happen, that ICE vehicles are going to be banned, it's not going to happen by 2030.
Mm-hmm.
It's wishful thinking on their part. There simply is a lot more change that needs to take place than I think we have the stomach to be able to handle.
And then I find there's this disturbing trend of going back to hybrid vehicles.
Yeah.
I understand why a company like Ferrari would be hesitant to go full bore into electric vehicles because they just don't have the engineering talent or the capacity to create 100% EV. They're going to go through the same growing pains that GM did with the recalls on the battery, and Ford Fusion, and Ford with the F-150. But it's the wrong direction, folks. Here we are, trying to get rid of fossil fuel burners. And granted, a hybrid has a better, rating in terms of the emissions. You get more miles per gallon. It uses less fuel. But still, you have higher elevated maintenance costs. You have 2 drivetrains in that vehicle. And I encourage all of the auto manufacturers, be courageous. And go into EVs 100%.
I have heard the hybrid craze is talked about. It's the worst of both worlds. You have the disadvantages of a gasoline-powered or an ICE-powered vehicle because you still have the oil changes and the fluid changes and so on and so forth.
Tune-ups, yeah.
Tune-ups, lots of complexity in the engineering. In fact, even more complexity because of 2 drivetrains. And you have the disadvantages of EV in that you may end up having a $6,000 battery replacement in your future.
Right.
And they're not as fast as a true battery EV would be because there's too much weight in the gasoline-powered portion of the car to make it actually go fast like an EV would be.
Yeah.
So it's... there are too many governments across the globe that are moving this direction, though. I don't think for me, it's not going to be 2030, but you go to 2040, that's a different story. I think if you add 10 years onto that, you're going to see most internal combustion engine vehicles will be phased out, and most companies will be producing either all EVs or mostly EVs.
Another headline here. Tesla, congratulations to Fremont and Giga, Nevada for building their 3 millionth car.
That's so cool.
Jesse, you were saying that it was just, 2 million not that long ago.
Yeah, it's grown very, very rapidly, especially at Giga, Nevada. And I think they're actually they're in the middle of building a new, pretty large expansion there too. So it's going to increase. They're going to be one of the biggest outside of Giga, Texas here pretty quick.
Yeah, I actually did a little look up on this too. It was July of 22 that Fremont produced its 2 millionth car. So to be less than 2 years later, going to 3 million, that means they're producing at a very high rate there. When they produced their 2 millionth car, incidentally, it was only a month later that company-wide Tesla produced its 3 millionth car. So Fremont's been the one that's been around for a while. That is the original. They as people like to call it, that's the OG. That is the original place.
Teslas are omnipresent on the road, at least here in the state of Arizona, or Phoenix for that matter. And I'm going to be in Europe tomorrow, actually. We're flying out. And the last time I was in Germany, we didn't see any Teslas. We were hard pressed. It's going to be interesting to see how that changes. I'm going there for the Tesla Takeover, by the way. For those of you that are interested in joining there, it's in Flachau, Austria, outside of Salzburg. And there will be 1,000 cars there, a lot of festivities, good music, good guest speakers and workshops, all of that. It'll be quite an event. But I hope to see more Teslas and more EVs in general this time in Europe.
If you get a chance, take a picture of some of the BYD EVs that you see.
Yeah, okay.
Because BYD is they're a pretty significant seller of electric vehicles in Europe. And of course, they're banned here in the United States.
Right. Well, yeah, banned.
Tariffed.
Yeah, tariffed
anyway.
to death, right? All right. YouTube, Obertowski says, see if there's any good evidence of climate change. The government can put any restrictions overnight. They can ban privately owned internal combustion. Musk is smart. He will also lobby to ban ICE vehicles. Will that be interesting?
It will be interesting. It's businessmen are going to be competitive. We've seen this at the top levels.
Mm-hmm.
And while they will say, we want to win this fight on a fair field, they will also say, but if you're going to tilt the odds in my favor, I'll take that too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes. All right. Oakland, California. Interesting. Made the news. A school district there is the first in the U.S. to transition to 100% electric school buses with vehicle-to-grid technology, V2G technology. And the Oakland Unified School District has now a fleet of 74 electric school buses with bidirectional charging. PG&E supplied 2.7 megawatts of load to Oakland's EV-ready facility. The fleet will be managed through Zoom's AI-enabled technology platform. By the way, Zoom is spelled with an umlaut, and that means it's pronounced Zoom in German.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that you can tweak the sound of a vowel in German only by putting two little dots above it. Otherwise, it's always said the same way.
Well, it's so phonetically, English is the odd language out.
Mm-hmm.
Most languages, German, I know French is this way, Spanish is this way, you typically have one phonetic sound for every vowel,
Mm-hmm.
or one phonetic sound for every consonant. And so in order to change the phonetic sound, you have to do things like carets or umlauts or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So they say that Oakland now is becoming the first in the nation to have a 100% electric school bus fleet. It's a huge win for the Oakland community and the nation as a whole, they say. But what's interesting about this is the families of Oakland are disproportionately disadvantaged and affected by high rates of asthma and exposure to air pollution from diesel fuels. Did not know that.
I did not know that. I know that Oakland is one of the poorer areas of
Mm-hmm.
the San Francisco Bay area, and this is an interesting development. Cool for them. I had to do a little bit of research to find out more about Zoom, and how does this vehicle to grid stuff work? Because it says they can put 2.1 gigawatts of energy back onto the electric grid from the school buses.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
That's a lot of energy. And I'm thinking, okay, how are they doing that? Yeah, the key is the AI software.
Really?
The buses will pull electricity as needed based on the schedule that's fed into the software so that the buses always have energy to get the kids where they need to go. They will also pull energy to charge the buses during times of lower demand. Then when during times of high demand, the buses will provide energy to the grid to help even out the overall electric demand. And essentially you have a 2.1 gigawatt power substation sitting there in the middle of Oakland.
So they're drawing when the cost is low and supplying when the cost is high.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay.
When the cost and demand are highest.
And we certainly hope that is the future because that will level out the grid and make it so much more efficient.
It certainly will. Zoom's vision is to have more than 10,000 buses in depots across the nation and be able to provide something along the lines of 300 gigawatts of energy per year to the community, to the communities that those buses are in.
So we found an interesting study. EV and plug-in hybrid battery replacements are rare, was the headline. They said just 1.5% of electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles have needed their batteries replaced since 2011, according to this new study. And it's part of the U.S. Department of Energy using data from a company called Recurrent. And we reported on this months ago, I think it was.
We've reported on some of Recurrent stuff. That's right.
It's a company that tracks battery life. And the data is compelling at this point. They say that that the battery is the most expensive part of an electric vehicle or I suppose a hybrid, and many potential EV buyers have cited fears about battery replacement costs as a reason to hold back. Well, a couple of things have happened. Batteries have grown more reliable in recent years, and the DOE explains the replacement rates due to failures are well under 1% for cars from the model years 2016 and later. So the trend is definitely declining at this point.
It definitely is. If you remember a few months ago, the recurrent study that we touted, that we talked about, was supercharging.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not supercharging was harmful to battery, or high voltage DC to DC charging in general, but not supercharging in particular. And the recurrent study came back emphatically and said, no, it's not. The battery safety systems are much more advanced than the potential harm to the battery that could take place from high voltage charging. This is the same type of thing. I loved when I saw this article come up on our list for this week, because just this last week I had 2 different conversations with 2 different people about this exact topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look, guys, that a gasoline engine might fail at 100,000 miles. But the better gasoline engines, the more current or more recent gasoline engines, they're designed to last 200, 300, 500,000 miles. That's pretty common.
Mhm.
The same thing's happening with EV batteries.
Right.
Your oldest EV batteries, maybe 100 to 150,000 miles, you might have to replace them, but it's a very small percentage, just like it's a very small percentage of the ICE engines. And the vast majority of your EV batteries are going to get you 300 to 500,000 miles or more. People don't even necessarily know yet, except for the Uber, the super drivers that are going out and have put the 1,000,000 miles on their Tesla already.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So another headline here, possible end of Rimac production of electric hypercars. Remember we talked about the Rimac earlier in this podcast.
We did.
The performance of the Rimac, and that there are a couple of cars that are even faster than this car, both top speed and 0 to 60. But this is according to the Rimac CEO, whose name is Matej Rimac, and he says the market for electric hypercars is shrinking. As EVs become more widely used, high-end consumers want to stand out from the crowd, and instead of what the general public purchases, they like analog vibes and combustion engines. Well, those are going away, of course.
Of course.
So, but during this week's Financial Times Future of the Car Summit, the CEO, Matej, pointed out that a lot has happened since Rimac started working on the Nevera in 2017. Globally, customers now have access to many more cheap options than they did a few years ago, even though EV sales are slowing down. To encourage adoption of EVs, governments have put strong rules in place, and a number of automakers have already committed to selling only EVs by a particular date. However, some are amenable to changing those plans. And Matej claims that people are a little bit repulsed by it, and that these forces are pushing stuff on us that we don't want, quote unquote, which is causing a fall in demand for high-end EVs and hurting his business. Now, he says you may still buy the Nevera hypercar. In spite of its initial goals to create 150 cars, the company has already delivered more than 50 cars to customers.
Isn't it easier, if you're having problems with sales, to blame something nebulous that's completely uncontrollable?
Yeah, good point.
Than it is to blame something that might be able to be controlled?
Mm-hmm.
He says it himself. A number of automakers have committed to selling EVs, by a particular date, and they have cheaper options. We've talked about this. Sure, you've had the Nevera, but now we also know about the Owl, and we know about, there's several EV only supercars out there. And I even mentioned too, what's the difference between a Nevera and a Lucid Sapphire and a Tesla Model S Plaid? Virtually none.
Yeah, good point. And the huge price differences.
But there's
by
a
the way.
10x price difference. Somebody who's buying a Lucid Sapphire might get that same sense of exclusivity that they would get if they had a Rimac. Maybe that's his problem, not that the EV market is slowing down.
Mm-hmm. All right. Instagram, Reem Bulahabel says, What about the contactless energy transfer for recharging EV batteries? We're talking about inductive coupling, I'm assuming, without connection. It's been hypothesized that future generations are going to find this time period somewhat humorous in that we actually connected cables to cars to charge them. For a number of reasons. One is we can get direct solar once the energy density capture becomes high enough to where a photovoltaic system or even photovoltaic paint will charge the car by just sitting there. And then we have the inductive coupling, putting loops into the streets that you drive across to capture your charge. There's nothing recent that we're aware of, any kind of technological breakthroughs in any of those two categories. So I can't comment on that.
The latest that I had heard, and I think it was from us talking with one of our guests on a podcast a couple months ago, inductives just still has too much loss, too much power loss going on. It's not efficient enough compared to what you can get with a wire. The fact that you might need to take 30 seconds to walk to the edge of your garage, pick up a plug, and then bring it back to your car and plug it in is not enough benefit to save that 30 seconds and over losing potentially 20 or 30% efficiency because you just pulled your car in.
Right. The only advantage there would be is that you wouldn't have to stop in order to recharge. You could either get that from the sun or you could get it from the road that you're driving on, and it would be a continuous, source of power, basically.
Yes. On Instagram, E46 Costa says there'd be too much heat. That's very possible too.
Byproduct of inefficiencies, sure. And then, of course, we've got AI that will come into the picture. If it sees that road you're traveling on is smooth enough and you're not getting enough of a charge, it could actually affect the hydraulics in the car and lower the car so you get a closer proximity to the charging surface.
Sure, absolutely.
So here's an interesting one from Torque News. It looks like Lucid's CEO, Peter Rawlinson, is giving a bit of love to Tesla.
Yeah, I know. Wow.
What he said was that even though the Chinese EVs should not be underestimated, they are not as advanced as Tesla. And that's quite commendable. Peter has been the recipient of some criticism from Elon in the past. And, it looks like that his early roots in Tesla are still firmly implanted.
It definitely does. And of course, the CEO of the company that's making the most advanced EV tech and who happened to work at Tesla up until a few years ago, I'm sure he's going to call the Chinese tech less advanced. He's probably biased, at least a little bit.
Right.
But I am glad that he's saying that the Chinese automakers should not be underestimated because the marketplace as a whole is going to look for good enough. They're going to look for what is acceptable for the dollars that I want to give, and once they get to that acceptable level, they'll jump, they'll go forward. Peter and Lucid, they like to have the best. They've engineered a superior product. I hope they can end up translating it. So that the people think that Lucid's superior technology, the perfect tech, it becomes the good enough that they go for.
Right. Good point. Teslarati, they created an article this last week, and it says the headline is Biden admin mulls penalties for Chinese EV makers moving to Mexico to dodge new tariffs. Of course, what this is about is with these extraordinarily high tariffs, which are basically going to block some ability for the Chinese auto manufacturers to do business in the United States. One workaround there is to relocate into a NAFTA zone.
It is, and I both did some looking online and it went to ChatGPT for research when I couldn't find any details on this. And even ChatGPT kind of came up empty on me.
Really?
Think of this scenario. A Chinese-owned company, let's say BYD, builds a factory in Mexico. But this Chinese-owned company decides to get most of their steel products and their technology and their raw materials and everything from various areas around the globe, say Africa, say South America, not China. So you've got a Chinese-owned company that's getting its materials from other places and doing most of the manufacturing in Mexico, not in China. Is it a Chinese car? No, it's not.
Good point.
At that point, it's a Mexican car by a Chinese-owned company. And how do you put a tariff on Mexico for a Chinese-owned company?
Right.
It gets to be a real hairy situation. There are not a lot of good options, and tariffs will be off the table in this type of circumstance. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I think it's, as much as anything, it's political rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's going to hit Giga Mexico if they put tariffs down there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's the North American, well, the North American Free Trade Agreement's successor. I don't remember what it's called right now.
Oh, there is a newer generation of that?
There's a newer generation of that. President Trump negotiated that to get a little bit more favorable terms with Mexico and with Canada. Mm-hmm. So the successor to the NAFTA is already out there. Putting a tariff on a Mexican company or even on Tesla, that's kind of going to be out of the picture.
Right. Okay. Well, looks like we've got a comment. YouTube Vietnamese Style is saying, salute to the Gruber family. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And all the rest of you that are joining us. We are going to wrap this podcast at this point in time. And at 11 o'clock, in about 13 minutes, we're going to start again with the Tesla Roadster podcast. So for those of you who are interested, it's the same YouTube channel. Just go to the Roadster podcast, and that's where we focus more on the first generation Teslas, the Tesla Roadster and all of its issues. And we've got a full agenda today regarding that. Again, for those of you interested, join us in Europe. It's this weekend. It's the Tesla Takeover, Flachau, Austria, and it should be a good time. I'm Pete Gruber.
Mark Schaffner, take care. Have a wonderful day.